The motor sounds really cool. It's real mechanical sounding, and it's got a cool sound to it. I grew up in the era, we'd take our dad's car, lower it, whatever, put wheels on it, and and put a stereo in it. That's how it started. I'm Greg Markarian. This is my shop, and I hate the word man cave. When people say that, this is my man cave, I just hate that. It's my shop and my play around room here. Me and all my brothers and all of us had cars, motorcycles. Our parents, they were practical people. I don't know how we got like this. Maybe it was some of the people that maybe worked on my dad's farm or whatever. We had a couple of characters that worked there, and they were guys that, one of them was a guy that burned rubber till the day he died. I mean, every time you looked at him, and you gave him this signal, the burn rubber signal, he'd do it, or spin a Brody in front of you. And I had a chopped Merc too that I built, and it was in the Oakland Roadster Show and the Sacramento Autorama and the Boise Roadster Show. This car here was in the Grand National Roadster Show, and it was also in the Sacramento Autorama too. I started in motocross, started racing motorcycles, and then I went, after that I stopped racing for a while, and then I got into micro midgets, raced those, and I've raced a dirt modified a couple times too. Then after that, once we got on our own or whatever, I'd take a car all the way down to every nut and bolt and build it back up from the ground. The Merc, my chopped Merc was my first car I built. And then after that, I've had, several other cars. I've got the other cars I collect too, the Midgets, which are outside. I've got a Midget with a Harley motor in it, and then I have one with a V8 60 in it. This Midget here, the reason what makes this so neat is it has a Harley motor in it. And this is, it's not built or anything. They actually raced this thing back then. I saw it on eBay and I bought it. It was in Oklahoma and they sent it here, and I thought maybe I could just leave it alone and leave it real original and not have to paint it, but I looked at it and it was just so bad. So I didn't change any of the mechanical stuff, but I cleaned the body up, painted it, and then I had the motor rebuilt. That's a 45 motor with high compression heads. It's got a mag on it. And then this is really strange. The Harley guys really look at this, but back then they mounted a Strongberg carburetor on here, which is, really crazy. But anyway, you could see where they welded it really crude on the manifold and all that. And I didn't change any of this stuff. Look, it's got plumbing pipe here holding the drag link arm on there, and it's this is the brake here. This is actually what a 45 Harley would have for a shifter, the suicide shifter. They took it and just used it for a brake here. This thing here, if you look, Google back in the 40s, popular mechanics, build your own race car, and this identical car is on the cover of Popular Mechanics, and it's like a drawing or whatever on there, and it says build your own race car. It looks identical to it. And I guess these Harley motors, these 45s, I was told, were for sale in the back of Popular Mechanics because they had made so many during the war. They had a ton of them, and they had no motorcycles, they had motors. And so they didn't know what to do with them, and so they sold them real cheap. I think they sold them, somebody told me, for 75 bucks. And so that's what they did. They put that article, build your own race car. Yeah, this is the 36 Ford pickup. It's my race car hauler. This is just what they would have used back in the 40s when that Midget was real popular. And it's all tricked out. Isky cam, Offenhauser manifold, Edelbrock heads. It's got a Columbia overdrive on it, which would have been I mean, the cat's meow for leaving here in Fresno and going to the LA Coliseum, climbing the grapevine with this thing. I mean, these guys must have, you know, thought they were it. The trailer is all matches the pickup. So this thing has a V860 in it, which was probably one of Ford's worst motors. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking. They put these things, I guess, in 40 Fords, I guess, to save money. And I mean, they had no horsepower at all. I bet you couldn't get top speed of 40 miles an hour out of it. But of course, you know, everybody takes things and tweaks them and whatever. So Edelbrock made heads for them, and Edelbrock made manifolds. They made, you know, all kinds of race parts for them. And they got really popular in the midgets and in, they called them cracker box boats. They raced boats and they ran them. So that's what they ran, these V860s. Then the demise of this was the Offenhauser, and the Offenhauser dominated the midget scene. And then these things weren't very popular. They also overheated. They had an overheating problem. They used to call them, the ones with V860s, they called them teapots because they would burn the driver all the time. This one here has been set up to vintage race. So it has a starter on it because normally they wouldn't have a starter. They had an in and out box. So it'll start and run. And it has a clutch and everything too. It's a complete hauler and everything, just like it would be back in the 40s when they raced them. This is my 32 Sedan here. It has a 540 Merlin with a Hilborn injection in it. It's got about 700 horsepower and about 700 foot-pounds of torque. When I started to build it, I always wanted a stacked injection car like that. And never really wanted all that horsepower, but it kind of goes along with it when you put that kind of injection on it. The injection is controlled by a computer, so it's very dependable. I've driven it to the coast twice, had no issues with it. I've driven it to the Bakersfield and March meet, the Hot Rod Reunion. The only thing is don't pass up a gas station. I've got another 32 out there, a 5-window. This is my 5-window, 32 5-window. This is the one this winter I'll be pulling it apart, but not completely. But it's got 40 Ford running gear. It's all nostalgic, so I figured it has a 283 in it now, and I'm building that race flathead. I figured it'd be real easy to put it back in there and then put the Buick brakes on it. And there's a few other things I want to do to it, but keep it all old school, you know, non-reproductive parts and all that. And got the real Strongberg carburetors gonna go on it. The heads are not reproductions. The block and the heads and the intake I got from an estate sale, Blackie Jajian's estate sale. He was our neighbor over here, and he you know, he was a legend here. He put on car shows, he put on drag races, he put on circle track races, you know, and we were real good friends with him. My mom babysit his kids when he used to go running around, so we had a lot of pull with him. I'd go to the Autorama when I was like 18 years old, and I would, you know, of course, I'd go to the beer stand and go grab me a beer or whatever, and Blackie'd walk by there, just shake his head and look at us or whatever, and you know, and then we'd go take our beer, go over there and watch the Playmate, you know, sign signatures or whatever, and sit there and drool and stare at her. I've got Cushman scooters. I started to get into those a little bit, you know, and that got old a little bit, but they're cool. And if anybody doesn't know what a Cushman is, it's a Harley wannabe is what it is. I think how they sold them is probably little Johnny or whatever. Maybe he saw a pack of motorcycles go by him. Goes, man, I want to be like that, a bunch of Harleys. And he probably went and asked Mom and Dad. He goes, well, Dad, can I get a Harley or whatever like that? And, and they knew little Johnny, he'd probably kill himself on that. So I think that's what little Johnny settled for, was that Cushman. Yeah, this is a Cushman Eagle. These were probably from around the 50s, about 57 or so, like that. Like I say, these are Harley wannabes is what they are. Like I said, this is a, I don't know that for sure, it's a fact, but I think that this is what kids ended up with when their parents didn't want them to get a Harley. I have that kazoo vehicle out there. They call it it was made in, well, it's actually, people call it a kazoo, but it was made in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And if you look on it, it has a label on there. It was owned by Douglas Aircraft in Santa Monica. This is, they call this a kazoo. It's got a Wisconsin engine in it. It's from the 40s. And it says right here, it was owned by Douglas Aircraft of Santa Monica. And I looked that up, and I guess they were making planes, warplanes or whatever. So this thing probably ran around in the factory over there and carried parts around. So I bought it, I painted it, and put the Model A housings on it with the tractor seats, and thought maybe it'd be a support vehicle for my pit crew for that, or I ended up just hauling drunks around here at parties. That's what I ended up doing with it. But it runs really good. It runs on propane too. Well, a friend of mine, he invited me to go to a meeting. They were just getting going again. Club de Pharaohs started in 1957, and we still have a few of the original guys that were in it, in the club still. And they got it back going again way later, and it's really taken off. We used to have to look for people to want to join, and now there's people coming to us, and the quality of the people is really good. I mean, we're getting people that are real good car people, and that's what you want. It's people that really love cars.
We formed the Pharaohs Car Club in 1957. John and I were 17-year-old students at Fowler High School. We both had a great interest in cars. My dad had the Chevrolet agency in Fowler, and John lived right across the street. So we became best friends, and we spent a lot of time with cars as little kids. We grew up. By the time we were in high school, we both had classic cars. We decided to form a car club. We decided on naming it the Pharaohs Car Club. Our sponsor was a CHP officer, and our mission was to enjoy cars, but also to raise funds for charity. And that's how it started.
Car culture at that time was we'd get together and park our cars in town where the telephone office is now was an open lot. So we'd say, we'll see you at the lot. This was either after a football game or some sporting event. We'd meet there, and then sometimes we'd drive into Fresno and drag the main. That was our big excursion, driving 9 miles from Fowler to the main and dragging it back and forth, and on it went. And that was one of our fun activities. Besides that, we would sponsor dances, and we'd make money, and we'd always give a small percentage. We would vote on the percentage afterwards as to what to give to charity. You know, being honest here.
When we formed the Pharaohs, as far as we knew, there were no other car clubs that we were aware of named the Pharaohs. And we were the only ones. And then all of a sudden, in the early 1970s, American Graffiti, the movie American Graffiti came out. And what do you know, and that was actually based on Modesto, not too far from here. And a car club was featured in there called the Pharaohs. Exactly how George Lucas came up with the name the Pharaohs, you get different versions of how it was. The version we like is that he must have seen one of our plaques. But now, as a result of American Graffiti, there's Pharaohs Car Clubs all over the United States, all over the world, because of American Graffiti and the publicity that it generated.
But Marv, you have to recall, none of them knew how to spell Pharaohs.
No, a lot of times they spelled it wrong.
They spelled it Pharoahs, like the famous horse a few years ago. Ours is AOHS. I thought that was a pretty important fact.
The gas pumps, probably that's where I started, and then started getting a few of those. Restored one or two of them myself, then found out it's better just to buy them. And then actually the ones that are outside, the unrestored ones, are if you ask me, they're the most valuable ones. They're rusted and everything, and the visibles, the ones like these, those are my favorites. Yeah, we're busy. This movie theater sign, a friend of mine up in Modesto, he saw it on Craigslist, and he goes, "Hey, did you see that movie theater sign?" Because he knows I collect signs. And I go, "No, I didn't see it." So I looked it up, and so I go, "Oh, I'll call the guy." I told him it looks like a real piece of shit, it's all beat up. And I go, I don't know if I'm interested, but then I put in the number, and I happen to know the guy that had it. So I just called him, and I told him, "Yeah, you got that?" He goes, "Yeah, I'll go look at it." And I went and looked at it. It was in horrible shape. It was mangled and everything. And so we brought it back here, and I had a guy that worked for me that was pretty crafty, and he straightened it out and put those poles on there. But I mean, this thing was on top of the drive-in movie, the marquee at the Mooney Theater. I mean, it's priceless. This stuff, I'm so lucky I came upon some of this stuff. And this sign right here was on the old 99. It's kind of a famous place, Wells Used Cars. It was funny because if you Google it and look on there, there's people used to stop and take pictures of it because there was another sign there that said Wells Fine Used Cars. And then if you look, there was a bunch of cars all lined up there. They all had flat tires. The hoods were all up on them and everything, and it said Wells Fine Used Cars. It's kind of funny. I started, probably these are the first thing I started collecting to put in this room was the gas pumps, which, that's what everybody does. Gas pumps are real common. And then I, got into the neon signs and the porcelain signs. And then, it took off from there. This bear sign here, I remember this when I was a kid. I used to always, when I'd see it, I'd tell my parents, "There's a smiling bear, there's a smiling bear." And it always amazed me, and it's real collectible. That's bear-made alignment stuff for cars. This sign here is super, super rare. It's in horrible condition, but it's just, there's no examples of it. There's plenty of reproductions of that. And Gilmore was a Southern California petroleum company that was really into racing. I mean, you look at the old Indy cars, their name was all over everything over there. You got, this is a real real prize thing here. This was Al Pombo's refrigerator that I'm sure he drank beer out of every night working on the car or working on whatever. But his son Tony is one of my best friends. He said, "You want that thing, you know, or whatever?" I said, "Really? You give it to me?" So I told him, I said, "Well, I'll take it." I said, "If your kids ever want that back, I mean, it belongs in your family. I'll give it back to you." But I tried to clean it a little bit and, you know, maybe make it a little bit better. And I said, "Stop right now. I'm not doing nothing to this thing. Just leave it alone. If you live in Fresno and you don't know who Al Pombo is, I don't think you have a pulse." This side here, I was collecting these for a while. I sold one or two of them, but this ham sign, I tell everybody, this is the one that rotates, and there's a bunch of stories that people saw things on here, you know, that maybe only this one sign did, like a fish jumping or something like that, which, you know, it's impossible. It's just a tape turning around in there. And I tell everybody, you know, before the smartphone, this is what a lonely drunk stared at on the wall before he had his smartphone to look at, was one of these. Oh, I forgot to mention the pinball machines too. I got into that era, but anyway, started collecting one. The first one I wanted was Evel Knievel, of course. He was my hero. I mean, anybody that was into cars or motorcycles or whatever, I mean, everybody looked up to him. I used to jump my bicycle and everything, and I jumped my motorcycle. I just wanted to be like him so bad. Then, of course, there's my other hero, Hugh Hefner. Who would not want to be like him either? But I got jukeboxes too. This is a 46 Wurlitzer 1046. They called it, this is the one they called the bubbler. And what it does, it has little heaters in there in the bottom. And when you turn it on, it takes a while. And then all of a sudden you'll hear a pop. And then it starts heating that oil. There's oil in there and it starts bubbling. This one's been converted to play 45s. It plays, but I mean, you got to kick it, punch it, go inside, tickle it, everything, but I can get it to play. This came off of anybody's from Fresno, if they drove to the coast or whatever, it came off the top of the 41 Cafe. It was on top of the 41 Cafe. It was on 41 in Grangeville. And what it is, it's Team Burger from A&W. But it was in horrible shape. Its feet were ripped off, everything. And then the same guy that fixed the Giant, Igor, he painted it and fixed it all up and redid it. Then the other thing I got, which is probably the centerpiece of the outside here, is that roadside Giant. And I don't know if anybody's my age. You know, when those were around, I was probably like 8 years old, and you know, maybe even younger. I don't want to embarrass myself, but you know, I still, there was a chance Santa Claus was real, and when I used to see those, I actually, they scared me. I thought they were real. I bought that thing at an auction. It was up in Merced. They had a small ag museum up there, and it was right at the entryway, and you walked right through its crotch, right underneath it. That's how you got inside there. And it was beat up. I mean, if you think that thing was built by a company in Los Angeles, I think it was called Fiberglass Unlimited. They were a boat place, of course, but then they started making these Giants as a hobby. And the next thing you know, they weren't making boats anymore. They were making Giants. They made that Giant out there. They made that version. He was holding a muffler. They called him Muffler Man. They made one that had a beard. They was Paul Bunyan, and he was holding an axe. Then they made a girl. She was called the Uniroyal Gal. She had her arm out like this, and they used to put tires on her arm or whatever like that. And when I got it, it was in horrible shape. A friend of mine was there. He had bid on it, and I told him, you know, see, go ahead and bid on that thing for me. You know, I'll go $4,000, whatever. And I'm here talking to my buddies, and then he's going, okay, it went up to $4,000. I go, I'm going, okay, stop, that's good. And apparently he didn't hear me. It went up to like 8,500 bucks. And he goes, hey, you got it. And I didn't have the heart to tell him, I told you to stop at $4,000. Well, this is a giant. This is the centerpiece of the whole thing here. And look at that intimidating facial expression it has. And this was Muffler Man. It was supposed to hold a muffler, a car muffler. But since I'm in the trucking industry and I had a diesel stack laying around, I put a diesel stack in his hand. I'd never sell that thing. That's my prized possession right there. I mean, when people come in the yard here, I see the look on their face, and you're not going to get a look on a face like that with anything else.